Hey guys, this will be video one for a new series I'm going to do while we are waiting on lacquer to dry for Eric's 1981 Explorer. And if you're new to this series, which you probably will be since it's going to be titled, 1981 Stratocaster restoration or something like that. But the really cool thing about this is, and let me just kind of go ahead and introduce what it is. This is a 1981 Ash, um, pretty rare series of the Stratocaster. It's called the International Series, and it is when they, at the late 70s, I think 79 to 81, they did some really wild international colors, and this one would have been the Maui Blue, which is to me probably one of the coolest ones since I've started doing my research. And there was a part of me when I was stripping the body, I had no idea what color it was originally, or if it might have just been a clear coat. So all I'm going to be able to say is I'm about 99% certain it truly was Maui Blue. But or if it wasn't Maui Blue, there's a possibility it could have been refinished because it looks like on this inspection stamp right here, the last initial is an R. But I just don't really see anyone sending a guitar like this back to the factory and paying for someone to have it painted a new color. So I'm going to go with the very strong likelihood this is a true 1981, September of 1981, and this was just the inspection when the guitar was being built or something like that. And I'm not really, let me back up. I am not a Strat aficionado at all. I'm more of a Gretsch guy when I first started building guitars, but then I've been doing a lot of like replica guitars the last 5 to 7 years or so. So neither here nor there, and kind of like the Gibson type replica guitars. But I think all of us have an affinity for the Strat. And the cool thing about this one is it's actually in exceptional condition where it is in good condition, but where it is in horrific condition, it's really, really bad. It's got a really nasty crack right here and a nasty crack here that goes all the way down and pretty much just goes into the body. So it's pretty much um, I would call it like a basket case. Like if you guys are into building bikes and Harleys and stuff like that. Back in the 70s, I always remember my brother. He was a Harley rider, and he was always talking about, like, buying basket case Harleys. That meant you would go buy all the parts, the guitars. I mean, the Harleys were in baskets, and you had to buy the baskets of parts, and then you had to build your own Harley from the baskets. So I would definitely say this is a basket case, or what, which most guys would call like parts casters and crap like that. So with that said, I bought this off eBay and from a real cool couple. And Kit has chimed in a few times in the past couple of videos where I was working on Eric's Explorer. And this came from Montana. So Kit and Carla, I'll give you guys a shout out. And I appreciate you being so nice and letting me win the auction. So, and it's kind of funny. They've been really, especially Kit, he was kind of told me the whole story about the guitar. So I'll share the story. Kit bought this guitar from his cousin, I believe, or his nephew. I think it was his nephew, and I apologize about that, about 30 years ago. And it ended up, something happened to it, and it probably had some damage before I'm pretty sure it already had the damage and attempt at repairs before. But regardless, it had been painted, and Kit had painted it. I think he said he had a Subaru or something at the time, and he painted the guitar. The final paint coat was like trunk black, like trunk coating black, and it looked like it. It was hilarious because when I bought it, it was just completely black, except the back had been stripped, but and sanded a little bit. Someone did do some sanding, but fortunately they didn't get into it too bad, if at all. I don't. In other words, you don't see any like horrific belt sander remarks or anything like that. But some of the old sealer finish right here is just barely still present on the top, but it's pretty much gone for the most part on the back, except in the cutaway. So, with that said, whatever took place about 30 years ago, Kit put it in a storage shed outside in Montana. So, we were joking about how that's probably the most brutal relic job a guitar body could ever experience, suffering through the brutal. I have no idea what cold really is, but I imagine Montana is like terrifyingly cold. This I'm in Alabama, so if that tells you anything. So Montana cold, Montana summers. This thing probably went from sub temperatures up to 100 degrees in the shed. So if you want to do some interesting research, research what's called lignin, Lignin. Lignin, I believe that's how you spell it. Lignin, lignin. Lignin is basically the wholesaler makeup of wood. And as the musical instruments get older and older and older, well, that lignin kind of dries out and gets more brittle. But you're going to find if I even attempt to do a tap tone, this guitar's dead. For what it could be. So I'm not going to waste time with that because with that horrific splits up the middle, it's probably that's the reason it doesn't sound very well at all from doing the tap tone. But this thing living in a shed for 30 years in Montana is probably the most unbelievably authentic relic job. I mean, aging process that a 44-year-old guitar body could go through. So is there any lignin left in the thing? Well, yeah, I'm sure there probably is, but it's probably at its absolute full potential for being an absolute like vintage tone monster. However, and I'm not being dramatic, but however, let's start talking about some of the crack. It's completely cracked into right there, and then carries over to that point right there. So fortunately, it's a controlled because of the uh, um, route out. I can't. If sometimes I'll draw a blank, I have to look at it. Block. Okay, the block route right there actually saved it from continuing on into the body back here. So all of this is fine back here, but unfortunately, it would actually be better if it had continued to crack. That way I could just break it in half and rebuild it. But because it's in exceptional condition on the outside perimeter, I've got to make a decision. Well, how do I bring this thing back to life? And I'm gonna kind of shock you in a little while. We're gonna do some pretty serious clamp work and open this thing up like a quarter of an inch almost, and to the point to where we might hear it cracking and popping a little bit. But it's already gone, so there's really nothing I could do that would hurt it, of course. So other than if I just attempted to put it back together by opening up these joints and squeezing some tight bond down in there, that would be the death of the guitar 100%. I can guarantee that. Uh, and the fact that this is the Maui Blue, the International Series Maui Blue, and it's so funny when I was reading about the International Series, I couldn't help but think of like the Mike Myers movies, the International Man of Mystery. So anyway, I'll try to not resort to those jokes because that's funny in its own right, just as a movie series. But the International Guitar of Mystery, we'll call it that once, and then I'll never call it that again, uh, is a really beautiful color. And so I say that to say this. It's really interesting because, and I'm going to try not to digress too much, but I'm just going to be all over the map here talking about um, one would look about everything. Because one would look at that body and go, Jesus, is that a one piece body? And it's a true testament to absolute incredible craftspeople, whether it was men or women, it's irrelevant. But the ability, this is a four-piece body. if not 5-piece. So let's start counting. There's one section here. So this is a section right here, and that's a section up there. But I'll just call that one piece, even though it gets cut out. So let's stay back here in the wide belt. It's a one piece right here. The second piece right there. The third piece is right there, and then the fourth piece is right there. But you would look at that, and this very likely would have been a body that they might have used as even a clear coat body. And that's why I got thinking, thought, man, there's a strong possibility this was just a clear coat guitar that got sent back to the factory and shot Maui blue. But I just don't see anybody doing that back in the 80s or 90s or something like that. Because you could pick up a Strat at a pawn shop or a music store for $500, $400, and I know you weren't going to be able to send your guitar back to Fender and have them repaint it for $30. You know that. So I say that to say this. That's why I really think that this was Maui blue, and I've already removed this little. I can't think what they call this, I'm not going to pretend like I'm shocked, but I'm not going to tell you what I discovered. We'll pop it off here in a moment, and you'll see my reasoning, and also how you can start making determinations. However, I will say the only thing that led me to believe that it might not be the original color is somebody did this cowboy humbucker work down here, very likely with a that looks like it was probably with a paddle bit, like a half-inch paddle bit, or possibly a Forstner, but there's Maui blue right there. So that's when I got down and thought, if that's the case, if it was originally Maui blue and then somebody did this humbucker work right here, you wouldn't see traces of the Maui blue. But then again, I don't know. That might be where the actual bridge. That might be the actual top of the original bridge pickup location. But I don't know. That's a tough one because you can see the original routes. That line, I don't know, it's pretty close. Anyway, I'm going to stop, but that's the only thing that led me to think that it would not be the original color. But I do know for a fact that location right there, sorry guys, I can't really tell where the camera is sometimes. I'll just look in the camera. That Maui blue that you see right there, that is the end of the original route. Okay, and then once it got chewed up a little bit right there, then it's white, but then down here at the bottom it's Maui blue. So I know I'm spending a lot of time with that, but I think that's important because if it truly was Maui blue and that's the remnants of the original route, then that Maui blue would be present right there. Okay, so very interesting project. And what am I going to do with it? Right now, I'm not really certain. I really don't know. And there's a possibility I'm just going to sell it because I'm not a Strat guy, and it might be that somebody else would prefer to do the finished restoration themselves. And I'll shoot straight with you. One of the main reasons I was the high bidder on it was because I knew most people didn't have a clue what might lie under all of that black paint and how bad, because they were really cool. They actually said, look, it's been in storage for 30 years. It's got cracks. It's got damage. We have no idea, the condition of it. And I thought that was really cool that they were so honest about the guitar body. And also, there was like a screw in it right there where it was, someone had screwed it together. But I got to tell you, whoever did that work right there, they did a really nice job. And I was able to get it out with ease. But nonetheless, with that said, I'm not 100% certain I'm going to keep it right now. But the main reason I wanted to bid on it is because I love the challenge of stuff like this. I mean, I knew it would make a great video series. And also because, not being arrogant, but there's not a lot of people out there that know how to repair something like this. So let's remove this little item right here. And one way you can do this is just get us a drill bit and start, wiggling it a little bit. And this was when I got so excited. So that's how that works, the little tilt mechanism. See, through the back side, anybody watching this video series, you probably know more about it than I do, but you would reach through, because this has a 3-bolt plate on it, but you would reach through right here with an Allen head wrench, and you could either raise or lower. See, you would go through the back with an Allen head wrench, and you could either raise or lower that tilt mechanism, which when I look at stuff like that, and that's an absolute BS gimmick. That's ridiculous, and I don't know why anybody would have ever done anything like that. But nonetheless, the purists out there. Now, if this guitar was in exceptional condition, I wouldn't dare be changing anything. I wouldn't even be considering changing this over to like a 4-bolt pattern, and I'm not going to do that stuff unless if I were to sell it, someone requested that I did that. But if you're like me, as soon as I saw that Maui blue, that was exciting, and I only saw that I've had this close to a month now, and I only discovered that about 30 minutes ago, and that's what prompted me to want to do the video. And also because Eric's guitar is drying, the lacquer and stuff like that. So, and speaking of that, I did the amber stain, the lemon stain, the initial lemon stain on the Explorer, and I shot the first coat of nitro, so I got that sealed and it's drying, Eric. If you're watching. So anyway, so we got a Maui Blue International Series, pretty rare guitar, 1981. And it's unfortunate that got done, but it did, and it was probably in thoughts of the whole 1980s and all through the 90s. The whole idea of the boutique Strats with the humbuckers was a very big thing. I know that any Strats that we were buying when we were kids in the 80s and 90s, we didn't want the we could care less about the 3 pickups, the single coils. We wanted the humbuckers, not just because of Eddie, but just because none of us really cared for the surf music then, or the beach type music. We were more into like the rock and roll stuff in the 80s and 90s. Okay, so very, very beautiful body in its own right. As far as what I was talking about earlier, it would be a very good candidate as a clear coat guitar. It would be obviously an exceptional candidate to be painted, but if you were going to paint it, there's no way I would paint it any other color than the actual Maui blue. And because that Maui blue is readily available all day long, and I think it's about $30, $35 for an aerosol can. And the way you would do that paint job is obviously seal it with and that's nitrocellulose lacquer in an aerosol can that is Maui blue. So not only would it be beautiful, but it would sound absolutely amazing. Or you could just leave it exactly like it is and do nothing but do all the repair work and do a really good job at putting it back together. Excuse me, and just leaving it as a very cool candidate to do either a tortoise pickguard. If you were going to go, and I did the last Strat I did, uh, um, I did do the celluloid. It was actually an actual celluloid though on the clear body, and it was really, really beautiful. And there's nothing at all wrong with going with the black. The black would look exceptional on the clear as well. And I might do a little bit of mock-up with that according to how long the video goes, and compare it to a George Lynch body that I used to have an actual George Lynch. So I traced that body from a long time ago, and we'll compare that. But the short is the George Lynch. The whole idea about the top there, and like the Kramer, like the 5150 type body, they're cut down. The whole top line up here is dropped down probably about 3/8 of an inch, and obviously they varied according to the radius on the sides of the body. But what's really beautiful about this thing, look how chunky it is. It doesn't have a whole lot of belly cut at all, but I got to tell you, it's incredibly comfortable. And she's not light. It's about 5.5 pounds bare stripped down, but look how little, a very small amount of a forearm cut, because typically the forearm cut, it goes, all the way up to like right there. And on my George Lynch over there, my God, man, it goes way, it goes below the center and to about that point right there. I mean, it's beveled. It's really cut off. But you know, pretty cool thing. And there is a part of me, I love the whole idea of the whole heavily distressed guitar. And it was a misfortune. It was unfortunate, I should say, when I was stripping it, because it took about 5 days to strip it, and I was putting the citrus stripper on it, and just having to let it saturate overnight. And I had cookie sheet paper over it to keep it wet, and then come back the next day with anything that was safe, and just was stripping and cleaning. And then when I start, because keep in mind, I don't think, yeah, I might have seen some of the Maui Blue, but I had not done any research about the whole international series guitars. And even when I bought it or was bidding on it, I didn't even know about that stuff. I didn't really care. I just knew that this was something that I wanted to tackle. And I almost lost my train of thought there. But what it boiled down to when I was stripping it, oh, I know what it was. When I started seeing that blue pop up, I had no idea about that. But I was pretty certain that the red and the white was not original. And there was also a lot of black in there. And I thought, there's a possibility this thing was a black Strat. But as I began to see that Maui blue, that's when I got to thinking. I thought, man, wait a minute, that's a pretty funky rare color. And you can see right here, see you've got the Maui blue, and then the white on top of that, and then the red on top of the white. Same thing goes here. Maui blue's on the bottom, right on the sealer in the camera, and then you've got the white that was painted atop the blue, and then sometime it got painted lipstick red. And over here, this is probably some of the best Maui that's left. The Maui right there, the white on top, and the white, it is a lacquer, but it's a very chalky lacquer, and that lets you know that it was probably like a big box store lacquer that someone bought for like painting furniture. So it's more chalky, but the actual Maui blue is, you can tell it's a true like nitrocellulose. So I'm gonna pretty much bet the guitar body that it was a Maui blue guitar, and that to me is kind of a dead giveaway, because when they were doing all the cowboy paint work, I don't know anybody that would have removed that item right there, and it is pretty clear that there is some black in there, but that very much is probably, even when I was doing the strip work, that it might have seeped up under there and stained that. So I'm going to title it a 1981 International Maui Blue uh, Ash Stratocaster Body Restoration, or something like that. Okay, let me check this out. 23 minutes. Okay. All right, let me think about how I want to approach the video, and I've already talked about kind of my intent enough that let's do some. As I told Kit, I said, this is going to make for an incredibly stressful video series, because I'm very likely going to be pushing it to the point to where it starts breaking apart, because I want to see in a controlled fashion where it wants to break. So let's see if we can break it a little bit. And how would you do that? And where I'm going with this, let me make certain I cover this, and not just sound like I'm crazy. Even though it broke right here, that would be what I would call a radial separation, where it just the expansion and contraction and the heat, and it was probably just the poor little body, it just gave up and it just broke in its natural place. I don't think this was some sort of damage where the guitar fell over and the neck, hit something. It very well could have been, or it might have had like some sort of fracture at that point. But regardless, the way it broke across the growth ring, because see, this is the direction of the growth rings right there. It kind of swings, and then it's more flat sewn right there. It's definitely more flat sewn over here. So it was breaking against the growth ring. So with that said, but it's a real clean, beautiful separation. And according to, if I can control this break right here and keep it coming in, God, that would be incredible. But I got a sneaky suspicion this break is going to want to try to start going this way, and I don't want that to happen because there's no sense in doing that. Before I let that happen, I will literally be putting this on the table saw and cutting the guitar in half so that I can relieve any of the stress, so that I can contain all of the stress and the separation work to the middle of the body, because it's really beautiful. As I've already said, from there up and from there down, it's the original guitar, other than that crack right there. Yeah, see, even though this crack comes across like on this angle here, because it broke on this angle, it carries all the way over to about this point on the back of the body. Okay, that ought to be pretty self-explanatory. Too bad it didn't crack. And it would have been awesome if rather than cracking out like this, that it cracked in, and then even this one cracked in, because then you could basically just remove that in a controlled fashion, clean up all that crap in there, and then glue it back together, or most likely epoxy it back together. But what you're about to witness when I open this up is I was surprised to find that it was much cleaner than I thought it was going to be, because of all of these years of painting. I had no idea. Well, when did it start receiving all the paint work? Was it after the cracks or before the cracks? And I got to think, thought, man, there's a possibility it got damaged really bad, and then whoever owned it, and I'm not talking about Kit and his nephew, or yeah, I'm pretty sure it was his nephew, just whomever owned it before then. I thought maybe they were trying to conceal the damage, but I think probably what truly happened is it just experienced getting multiple repaints throughout its life, and then once it got stored in the storage unit, then the brutal climate of the hot and cold finally did the final damage. It's irrelevant. It's, obviously not complaining, because if anything, it's exciting because it gets to show you that listen, that's dead. It sounds like a dried out cardboard box. Even out here. Sounds good right there. Has the potential. Listen to that. Yeah, she's wanting to sing. Nice right there. Dead right here. Might as well be a cardboard box out here. So, and that's the most important part of the entire guitar, where the neck is connecting to the body. If it's dead up here, then the whole guitar is going to be dead. Okay, so with that said, let's do some clamp work and some gap opening, and then I will clarify my discovery about realizing that the cracked areas in there, they're actually clean enough that I probably could just spread this baby open and load it full of Titebond glue, and it would sound okay. It'd be a good little guitar, but that would be an absolute shame as to what it truly could be. So, with that said, let's do some clamp work. And what you want to do, oh, I didn't get to finish what I was talking about. You don't want to just start driving wedges between these breaks. at all, at absolute all cost, you would never want to start, even bamboo skewers. You wouldn't want to start driving or wedging anything right there, because either if you sell it, someone might have wanted to do a really beautiful clear coat job, and it's going to be our job to make certain that we get it back together, even like this little section right here where it has like that little L right there. We want to keep all that stuff intact so that once it gets pulled back, drawn back together, you might be surprised that you can't even tell that it was ever broken. Because if you look at it from this angle right here, you can't see that crack until you roll it over. And the only reason you see that crack right there is because it has blue paint in it and a little bit of white and red. But once you turn it over here, then you begin to see just how bad it is. So obviously the last thing you would be doing is coming in, with chisels and banging into that and trying to open it up. And where would you start doing your pry work? Where I went in, let me get my other tool. Took what's called a 5-in-1. And I just went in right there first, because obviously that's where the neck's going to be. And even if you screwed it up, it's going to be concealed. Even stay out of this area up here. In other words, you don't want to be driving wedges down in any of those areas, because just as I always say, always think about the finished project. And if someone's inspecting it in the future, it's our job to try to figure out some way to possibly pull this job off where it's almost virtually undetectable. And that's a pretty tall order for this project, because it's one of the worst I've seen. Okay. So with that opened up right there, I began to see the possibility of, easing bamboo skewers in there. Oh, I've already cut some. I probably shouldn't have done a video tonight, because it's actually getting fairly late. Let me see if I got my hammer here. I almost did exactly what I said don't do. Let me get my hammer. I'd encourage that a little bit more. So you can see how it's really wanting to open up and relief. But surprisingly, it's actually still pretty strong. So with that but see, this is where I discovered this brake right here is wanting to go in, but that's scary, because once it hits this section right here and it is on an angle, there's a possibility it could take off and start cracking over here. And I've already covered that, so I'm not going to cover that again. But most likely it would crack over to this side right here. But we'll get there. I'll get there, I should say. So with that opened up right there, that allowed me to, I probably should have pulled that down and do that first. Okay. So we know which direction it's going to go. Put a block right there. And put a plate across there. And then, since we can't do a whole lot more damage to the body unless we used a C-clamp, and if you hooked a C-clamp under there, yeah, you could tear it apart, but you would also destroy the body because of that C-clamp right there. So here's a great opportunity to take advantage of your quick grips. And the further you go out, the more leverage you're going to have. So don't get way back in here real squatty. Try to go out as far as you can. Oh man, too bad the camera's not up higher. Let me try to let me find the camera, find out where the camera is. Yeah, it should be okay. We're already at 35 minutes as well. So you can see how this crack is kind of stopping. It's not it, but look at this right here. See how it's trying to go in that direction right there? Very strong possibility. See, it would be awesome if you could get it to break up into that area right there, and then get that one to break up into that area there, and just leave every bit of this intact, and just break every bit of that out, clean it up, and epoxy it back together, and do a really beautiful fit job, making certain that you keep all the fibers that are coming loose. Because once that got tight bond glue on it, it would disappear and you would never know that it was separated right there. And because you would have a little bit of tight bond in between it, you know, wherever there's a dry open surface, you would have glue in it. And will I be doing this with tight bond or epoxy? It just depends on how clean I can get it to open up. If I could get it to open up and come apart very cleanly, then it's most likely going to be a tight bond job. But if I get in a situation, this is the only reason I would just go ahead and use epoxy, because what I was getting at, I was expecting all of this join down in here to just be saturated full of crap from 30 years of paint being repainted 5, 6 times, and paint running down in there, and then my stripper running down in there, but it didn't. The only contamination that crack those joints got was when I was doing my stripper work. I was making certain to try to stay away from those cracks and not let it load up down in there very well, or very much. So I say that to say this: if I were just wanting to make this a player guitar, I would probably, let's see if I can open it up some more. Yeah, it did. It opened up a little bit more. Check it out. So it cracked right there. It started opening up right there. And see, that's a crack that you would not have even known existed until you started really pushing it to the envelope. So you got the crack right there, the crack right there, that crack right there. If you had been real timid about this glue work right here, you would not have known. Even after you glued this back, it still had a crack in the middle of the body right there that would have killed the tone very, very seriously. But if I was just going to turn this into a player job, player guitar, I'd probably mix up some T88 epoxy that I use a lot and mix it with about 2% less hardener than resin, and that gives you a more brittle, dry cure. And then I would thin it with a little bit of acetone, so it's real not watery, but it's far more likely to seep. And then I would tape all this off with blue tape, and I would just be loading it full of that epoxy and just really forcing it down in there. Even so much so, once the epoxy was down in there, I would be pulling pieces of paper through there to make certain that even the edge of the paper, I'm talking about like notebook paper, is real thin, and pushing the epoxy down in there and then letting it just seep and ooze down in there, and then pop these clamps off, clamp it together, and have a a really ugly guitar, but it would sound really, really good. That's if I was scared to put this body on the table saw and do some sort of controlled cut down here. See, because this guitar is completely broken into thirds, the middle and the top and the bottom, except for down here. But once I come in here and do a relief cut on anywhere within that route right there, the guitar is just going to fall apart. And that's really what we want. We really want this project to just kind of fall apart so that it can actually be put back together uh, correctly. Okay, so this ought to be a pretty interesting video, and I got to be real careful about that because that little piece is trying to come loose. But reaching down in there and see, yeah, see, even down in there, there are fibers that are, it's torn apart between the two pieces. It's not like there's just a real beautiful clean break on this side and a beautiful clean break on that side right there. Very doubtful you can see that, but you just have to trust me. But in other words, it's all torn apart internally as well. All the more reason to just get the guitar body completely apart. And then I guarantee you, if you're making discoveries like this right here, there's probably some more stuff going on that you can't even see, like down in here. Because I got a sneaky suspicion this area right in here might really be loaded full of some crap, and you wouldn't want to try to force epoxy down in there, because all you would be doing is just gluing what 40 years of filth to both sides. Okay, that ought to make perfect sense. And also, when you're looking at things like this, you know, you're trying to be really careful with that serial number. See, you got the 0 and the 9, and then it's cracked. It literally is cracked, just barely separating the 9 and the 81. So once that goes back together, you want to do the best you can to not lose that, but not at the expense of something else. Because according to what you're going to do with the guitar, uh, you know, that would determine the decision you made. Because like if you were just going to paint this thing Maui blue, and you're not as particular as I am about is tone, because to me, I don't care what this thing is, or I wouldn't care if this was a 1959. That wouldn't bother me whether I painted it or took it back to that sunburst or any of that crap. Uh, if it was at the expense of tone, then I'd rather just sell it and get rid of it and let somebody else put it in a closet. I mean, put it in a glass case, because I like building guitars for the tone and the playing and all that jazz, and turning them into, you know, an actual good sounding body for a guitar. But as I clarified on the front end with this one, there's a very strong possibility I'm just going to sell it, because if I keep it, well, then I'm going to have to go down the rabbit hole of building the neck, and then do I build the neck period correct for the 70s, which I absolutely I'll just be honest and say I hate the headstock on the 70s. They're just so unattractive. I do not like the three bolt pattern at all. Again, it didn't have any bearing on me bidding on the guitar, because I knew that it was going to be a project regardless. But it wouldn't bother me one bit to drill the traditional 50s 4-plate design. In other words, rebuild it. And it's kind of funny. There's a part of me, it's like, oh yeah, it's kind of cool. It's got the old stripped down relic look, and you can see the old Maui blue. But I think we've all seen that for so long on so many guitars they call them the relics, that I'm kind of sick of it and kind of burned out on that. I don't really care for that, especially the fact that this is the Maui blue and it's such a rare color. And you know, would be a beautiful guitar completely painted back. But I would leave the inside all clear so that someone could see the 2C and the 0981 and all that stuff. But anyway, so I'm kind of rambling there a little bit. So I'll let the tension off. Oh no, that's a good sign right there. That crack is nice. That's a real nice controlled crack. Well, I've already covered that, because yeah, I did. I've already covered that, where the only thing that's holding this guitar together is the area right there. That's the only thing holding together. And if you did one cut right there, I guarantee you that amount of pressure that I've got on there, the guitar would probably just fall apart, or it would go ahead and break through a little bit, and you'd have to make the determination: do you want to continue breaking it? And see, this is the only dilemma I'm having, is that joint right there. Even if I cut it in half right here, I don't think it's going to help me over here. I don't think it is. And see, this being a join, a factory join right there, that's one piece of wood. That's one piece of wood. there's a part of me that I may cut the guitar. I may cut the guitar right there as well and leave. That's where you would have to make the determination of which side of the join do you cut the kerf on. Do you remove material here or do you remove material here? And I would say probably the further you get away from these locations right here for the pick guard, all the better. But and in the best you can, you certainly want to try to stay away from sawing the guitar in half up in here, because now you're changing every bit of and you would have to reroute all that stuff. So if it's not that big of a deal to come up here and cut the guitar in half up here or down here or possibly in the middle, but once it goes back together, you really want all this to be original if possible. And there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to do that, or I shouldn't be able to do that. But I'm not there yet, and I got a long way to go. So with that said, I'll check the time. 46 minutes. My camera tells me that I've got up to 59 minutes of record time. So that would be, well, it's about 12, 13 minutes. So let me just, if you're here, you're probably drinking a beer by now, if not your third beer. And there's a part of me that's like, man, I should have gotten a bottle of wine before I started this project. But I didn't. Let's see if we can do a little more cracking. Try to do this on camera. It'd be hilarious if it just blew apart. I don't hear it cracking. I heard something just then. Yeah, I heard it cracking. That's interesting. See what it did? It just started taking off a little bit right there. That's incredible. I was telling Kit, I was like, yeah, this is going to make for an incredibly stressful video. Not for me, because I don't really care. But it looks like, man, if I could predict that it was just going to stay real clean and controlled, I'd probably put some C clamps on it and protect it, and I'd take it apart. I'd just break it apart. But I don't want to do something that I'm laying in bed tonight going, oh man, all you had to do was this, and you wouldn't have had to have lost every bit of that. But again, because of this figure, and I'm not trying to rationalize breaking the guitar apart, but with the figure of the ash, see, if this were alder or mahogany or something like that, very difficult to conceal. But this ash, once it all glued back together, is very forgiving about concealing, breaks, cracks, glue up, like poor glue up joints, where you just did the best you could, but it didn't turn out very well. So anyway, that was kind of cool to hear it. Let's see if we can put a little more stress on this side and see if we can watch it. I can hear it. I guess you can hear it as well. It's definitely opening up more over here. And it's kind of exciting because, let me see if I can show that in the camera. Oh, I think you could see it just then. What I'm trying to show you is how clean the wood is and how beautiful the wood is down. It's very, very clean. It's not contaminated at all. And honestly, I'll shoot straight with you. The more I look at that, it's really pushing me to the possibility of pushing it just about another 1/16 of an inch till it really just starts opening up. And I got to tell you, that would very likely be a very good candidate to saturate it full of a tight bond glue, and then let all this pressure off, and squeeze it back together, and have a moist cloth where you're wiping off all the excess squeeze out. There would be a ton of squeeze out, but the type bond is so forgiving, even in this raw wood, it'd be a very good job. But what is interesting right here, I just picked up on a crack right there. So see, there's a crack right there. Check that out. There's a strong boss possibility. Yeah, it's trying to go all the way through too. Is it on the top? That might be it right there. See that crack? It's like a radial crack all the way through the body. So with that said right there, okay, what's going on? So I've got all that stress going that way. What it looks like it's trying to do, it's trying to break that whole bottom leaf off, and there's going to be a break right here, but this could be really tragic in the event if it goes down here and all of a sudden and it shoots across and just destroys it right here, and then it breaks. It has a real beautiful clean break right there, but a very destructive break right there. So if you experience a crack like that, that could be repaired by when you're getting ready to release all of the tension and let it spring back. You would load it full of the thin CA glue. Okay, and I mean, you don't have the crap pouring all over the table, but just saturate it with the CA glue till it stops receiving the CA glue, and then pop all the clamps loose, and then all of a sudden it'll go back into place, and that'll dry solid as a rock, and the tone transfer will be exceptional. And that would be one way to do this job, where you correct that to control that and get that under control so it does not break. And then you make the determination, okay, I've really pushed it to the limits right here. Enough's enough. I need to stop and saturate that full of the tight bond, and not try to do both repairs at the same time even. See, you could repair this side or glue this side up and then let all the tension off, and then clamp and glue that side, and then wait about probably 4 to 5 days at a minimum, just to make certain that it's really, really, truly cured. And then repeat the process, but make certain that you just keep this clamped together so it doesn't blow apart on you on this side as you open up the other side. Okay? So I'm kind of processing through different options of how I may repair this job. And but there still is a part of me, as I said on the very front end of the video, I don't want this to be like a 3-day repair. I would rather spend a week and a half putting this thing back together and it having a 44-year-old tone of a very rare guitar, the Ash. And I think the only Ash guitars they're building now are coming strictly out of the custom shops, and those are the very, very expensive guitars. So with that said, I'll check the time. 53 minutes. We're getting pretty close to the camera cutting me off about 5 or 6 minutes. So let's let the pressure off. And one thing I forgot to talk about as well. What's really kind of crazy is how even when it broke through on the bottom, it broke through and it left all this intact. It's hilarious. So there's a part of me that was like, well, you could knock this out here and open that up and do the repair from the top, but it's actually holding together much better than I was expecting. Let me see if I can show it with a piece of paper. I don't have any. I should have had a thin piece of paper. Anyway, there's a flat up under that area right there, and there's a flat up under that area right there, but not down here. Okay. It's amazing how it's pretty tough. It's really holding up. It's not trying to continue to crack or blow loose. I'll take that back. That one's, as I've been talking, that one's trying to open up some. So that probably will be one of those where I'll make the determination of how to relieve it. Okay, so I'm kind of thinking out loud right now. But again, I'll cover it one more time. The most important thing that lesson I learned from this, and this is the first time I have opened this up this much, and I'm not just kidding to, for the video. I really mean that. This is the first time I've opened it up this much. And what I have discovered is that the wood is really clean. And I know beyond a shadow of a doubt, I probably could saturate those two sides with epoxy and just let it really, let gravity take advantage of the gravity and just let it really permeate down into there. And then maybe just come in here with a saw and saw that out and, repair whatever might be revealed, and then repair that with CA glue, and then just do the repair all at once, and then paint it Maui blue, and it probably would be a really good sounding little guitar. But there might be some crickets in there that I would never know existed, like this flat line crack right here. You just never know. There might be some more damage in there that would just kill the tone. All the tone would be great right at the point where it hit a point here and just lost 40% of the body tone. Okay. I'm going to pull the trigger on both of them at once, because if you didn't, there's a possibility it might blow apart. That's what I was talking about. As long as you protect that wood, you probably would be surprised once it went back together how good the little guitar would look, because you can't really see the top break, and you certainly can't hardly see that bottom break. Nah, you can if you're looking, but only because we're looking for it. But once it got clamped back together, I think for the most part, it would probably be a really nice looking guitar. Other than it's got that funky hole drilled in it right there where someone tried to do a structural repair. So if that hadn't have been there, I might have considered it being a clear coat guitar, but just that one little location right there would lead me to paint it Maui blue. And that would not be a mistake, because that's a pretty cool color, and it is still readily available. Okay, so I appreciate you guys dropping in, and I don't really think there's any reason to, because I'm about a minute and 30 seconds away from it shutting me off anyway. My camera storage is pretty much maxed out, and when I do a video and then I upload it, then I have to erase it from my camera, so I've got another hour for another video, and I'll try to cover this before it cuts me off. If I were to finish this project, because I used to do some restorations on these guitars, so this would be, if I were to build the neck and kept it 100%, that's the logo, which I don't like at all. I don't like it, So, and I'm the type of person, I've learned that if I don't like it, I don't care if it's a 1958 and it's worth $150,000. If I don't like it, I don't care. I don't want to fool with it. And I just don't like the 70s headstocks at all. And but the bodies are the bodies. And this is a 7